Hey guys, this is Kavi.
And this is Matt.
Today we'll be discussing car culture throughout the Middle East.
So, many Middle Eastern nations, despite having some hostility towards the U.S. And its allies, really love Western cars. As we left off with last time, Iran shares a huge appreciation for American cars, particularly classic muscle cars from bygone eras. While most of Iran does not have access to American cars, through the Aras Free Trade Zone in northern Iran, where Americans can import American cars, people will smuggle these cars into regular Iran, and they will go for very high prices there because people practically salivate over Western cars.
Interestingly enough, a lot of the classic American muscle cars found in Iran today have been there for decades. In the 1970s and 80s, when young Iranians came to America in the pursuit of higher education, they had the opportunity to take a personal car back with them when they returned home. Many students keenly took advantage of this policy, and they came back to Iran with Camaros, Firebirds, and other types of 70s American hot rods. Iranians got their taste of American muscle, and it's safe to say that they like it.
And cars are not just beloved in Iran, they're beloved all throughout the Middle East, particularly in the Gulf states. Nations like the UAE and Saudi Arabia have very big, very ingrained car cultures. Mainly in the UAE, because 99% of its transportation means are all road-based and built around cars. Cars are huge. Specifically, cars can be connected to drivers' identity. They can represent values and ideas, and of course, social status.
When you land in the UAE, if you land at Dubai's International Airport and you leave, you go along Sheikh Zayed Road. You'll see, restaurants, you'll see hotels, but most importantly, you'll see a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. You will see a lot of car showrooms, and they'll have glass panes that stretch the entire side of the building that faces Sheikh Zayed Road. And they've got a lot of cars. They love their car showrooms. I'm sure many of you have heard the adage that what you drive says a lot about you. Well, how you drive says just as much, if not a whole lot more. In Saudi Arabia, the dangerous and illegal street sports of drag racing and drifting are extremely popular with the young crowd. They're reckless, they love cars, they're just looking for a good time. In the ultra-conservative nation that Saudi Arabia is, partaking in these sports serves as a scream of frustration caused by extreme boredom, as so many forms of entertainment are just banned.
So while drag racing is just inherently dangerous in and of itself, there is one thing that even drag racers will not get involved with, and this is tafit, or basically Saudi Arabian drifting. So regular drifting is just the act of deliberately spinning out and skidding sideways at high speeds. This Arab form of drifting is just crazy. This form of drifting is just completely uncontrolled and done at such high speeds. Oftentimes, so many people will die in tafit accidents because they're just driving, they're doing this so fast and just without regard, without control. So many drivers, so many passengers, so many spectators have all died. And even people are described, or people who take part in tafit, as described by in NY Times articles, are young Bedouins who recently moved to the city and whose lives are marked by suffering and self-destructive behavior. And the ideas behind tafit, mainly that you are useless to the economy, you're useless to society. The ideas are basically just suicidal. And this is according to Pascal Menorat, who is an anthropologist who did 4 years of field work in Riyadh, and he is the author of a book completely on tafit and Saudi Arabian driving culture, joyriding in Riyadh, oil, urbanism, and road revolt.
So while both activities are illegal, street driving, drifting, drag racing, until recently, not much has been done by law enforcement to make a distinction or even attempt to stop tafit. Police would usually just roll up to the scene and disperse the crowds, telling them to go back home, making no arrests, just, making sure that there's no danger on the street at that point. But when this occurred, gatherers would simply just go to backup spots and continue, right? When the consequences of these activities became well known and spread around the globe via gruesome videos, you see people crashing, hitting semi-trucks on the other side of the road after going sideways. That's when Saudi police started to go, okay, this is kind of a problem. They began to crack down harder on Tafit and all related reckless driving.
So now, all deaths caused by Tafit are usually charged against the drivers as criminally negligent homicide, and the death penalty is often handed out in this case. But alternative punishments such as prison time, lashings, and lifetime driver bans have also been imposed. For example, there's the case of a street drifter known locally as King Al-Nazim. He was a young street drifter from outside of Riyadh and quickly gained notoriety for his outrageous driving. He did Tafit, but took it to another level, pushing the bounds of what was already insanity. According to the Daily Tribune of Bahrain, there are many crazy moves done by Tafit drifters. Two noteworthy ones of the many crazy moves attempted by Tafit drifters are Tatweef and Harakat al-Mwat.
So, tatweef is defined as passing another car while going sideways. The faster the better. Anything under 160 kilometers an hour, roughly 100 miles an hour, and you'll be considered a coward by your friends. Harakat al-Maut is defined as initiating a drift and then taking your hands off the steering wheel until the car comes to its eventual halt. If you don't crash and die, you've performed the stunt successfully in the eyes of your peers. Of course, what goes up must come down, and what goes sideways at 140 miles an hour inevitably comes to an abrupt halt.
Al-Nazim has been involved in many crashes, and according to Riyadh's prosecutor general, he even caused the death of a passenger in his vehicle. He was caught in 2014 and sentenced to 1,000 lashes, 10 years in prison, and given a lifetime driving ban, basically all the punishments you can get.
This is Saudi Arabia, however, so of course, this wasn't the end of the story. King Al-Nazim died in a car crash in the early morning hours of September 23rd, 2016. It's purported that he was pardoned and released just 4 months prior, having promised to have changed his ways. A tragic end, but not unexpected.
Another famous drifter who was almost executed for his antics was Faisal al-Otaibi, or as he's known in the press, Abu Kab, which roughly means the guy with the baseball cap. In 2005, Otaibi was involved in a crash while on a joyride that resulted in the deaths of 3 teenage boys he had taken along as passengers. He was originally sentenced to death for the killing of the boys, but thankfully for him, his sentence was reduced to 3,000 lashes, 20 years in prison, and a lifetime driving ban.
You can click the links in the description if you'd like to see examples of how Arab street drifters get down. Rates of street Tafit drifting are dropping in Saudi Arabia as official tracks for drifting has been introduced recently. Saudi Arabia has been a grounds for motorsports racing, especially Riyadh. They're taking after Abu Dhabi with their F1 tracks, and they've decided that they wanted to compete in their own motorsports-related field. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back on another episode. This is Kavi.
And this has been Matt.